So, hey everyone, happy Friday. Greeting you from, you see the reddish glow on my face? It's because I'm in hell. Nicole must be in heaven because you got all the sparkly white stuff on and it's all glowy. So, heaven and hell, kind of good Halloween podcast, right? Theme. Although
Yeah,
I need devil horns or
yeah.
something
Well,
like
it's
that.
actually today. It's Dia de los Muertos.
Yeah, and everyone's dead inside who's been in crypto as long as we have, so it's kind of fitting. Um, So, as always, everyone, hi. Let me know what the sound quality is like. Am I using the right microphone, as the volume, etc. while we're doing this? The levels look good, but you never know. I've had some issues recently where the computer will just switch to the webcam microphone like midstream and just won't tell me. And then everyone's like, "You're quiet. Your mic sucks." Yeah, it's definitely this one though. For now. So I just have to check because the joys of live streaming. You just gotta keep a live production going. I can't even
Yeah.
imagine.
No. Can you imagine the people who do it every day? Like, yeah, that's too much for me. That would be
I
much too much.
mean, every day is. I kind of think it's better
You
because
do. Because then you get in the groove, and you probably like the people who do it successfully over long periods of time have teams that help them with things.
yeah, I mean, if you do it every single day, it's like all you're in for has to be ready for that. But also, you're just super in the habit of it, and there's no anxiety around it usually. I would say, and also if you have an off stream, that's fine. Whereas if it's like you get this one monthly stream and you announce it on a calendar, and everyone's getting there like, oh my gosh, here it is, and then because that happened, yeah, last week I was doing a show, and it was one of those long rambly almost 2 hour ones,
Okay.
and almost an hour in, the YouTube and X streams just decided to stop streaming. They just ended. And it just what the hell? So everyone jumped over to the Odysee stream. Thankfully, I had redundancy, and I could
Yeah.
upload the recording later to the other ones to make it, to make it work. But it was still just it just rugged me for no reason. Whoops! I didn't even
Yeah.
see like an error or anything like that. Right? It just it's over. Sorry, done. Like sane.
Yeah. Yeah. That is no good.
Yeah, for sure. Let me see. Let me just check all the. Um, so do you know who War Ants is?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so War Ant said, Nicole, you look like you put WD-40 on the camera lens.
What does that mean?
Do you know WD-40
Oh,
is that?
40s for like when there's squeaks for
Yeah,
oiling. Yeah.
yeah. It just looks like you greased up the camera, I guess.
Oh, I wonder if I did touch it. You want me to try to clean it off and see if that changes things? Yeah.
I mean, if it's just 2 seconds, because
How
yes,
is
that
it?
was why it was a massive
Okay.
improvement. That is hilarious. I thought it was the lighting, but now it's
Yeah.
just oh, now we got the heaven and hell vibe going for a little while, and now it's and I'm
Gone.
looking on the YouTube feed, which looks a little bit behind this feed,
Okay.
and I can see the old fluffy looking one, and then the high quality one now. It's pretty funny.
Okay. Yeah, I know because we do this at the it's always at the same time. So I'm like, why is the sun in such a weird position right now that it looks weird? It's a
Yeah,
good thing someone I never would have guessed that.
yeah, for sure. It's pretty funny how that works. Yeah, he says way better. So
Okay.
that's cool. Um, anyway, let's actually officially roll the intro and get this show on the road.
Okay.
3,
Sounds good.
2, 1, go. So, anyway, hey everyone, happy Friday. Officially, this is the Digital Cash Rundown, episode 175, which means it's been going for over 175 weeks straight because there have been some off weeks and stuff. So that's what, 4 years or so?
It's a long
So,
time.
for the most part, for the last 4 years, this has been the staple of my Friday afternoon. So, I'm joined by the one and only Nerd Girl 007, also known as Nicole, who is looking slightly less celestial than a few minutes ago, but it's still spot on. How's it going?
Good. I'm great. How are you? I was just telling you I ate too much Halloween candy last night and it was dragging, but I'm better now.
Yeah, I get it. I don't really consume enough sugar to where it has that kind of an effect on me ever, but I do occasionally consume decent amounts of alcohol. Never to the point where I have like a headache, but sometimes if I'm like up late, having a few cocktails, and more I'm just like not the same, just a little like more sluggish. And then sometimes I do like jujitsu in the morning or whatever, like a weekend morning, and then you could definitely tell I'm just like,
If you,
oh,
yeah,
my style's a lot different. I'm much more like, I'm gonna chill around, much less like blast double the guy across the room. It's not quite the same. So yeah, the sugar crash. So happy Friday, everyone. Happy November, I should say, because we are in November now. Don't forget to pay your rents and mortgages in case you just like, you know,
I got to do that.
yes, don't forget to pay all your bills or you're going to get evicted. Not you, other people. And don't forget, I mean, Uptober was like Uptober. Like, it was a little bit of a disappointing October, but it's over. Now we have Pumpvember, or we're going to find out in a few days, see how the market reacts to, the annoying pissing contest that's going on right now. But let's just dive into stuff then. And let me go shill Coin ATM Radar because they absolutely deserve that. So this podcast is still, as far as I know, sponsored by Coin ATM Radar. I would buy crypto with cash. An ATM is much more reliable and it's safer than meeting some random person in a random place or a random country. That gets even scarier. Imagine you're traveling to a new country and you just need some cash for crypto or whatever, and you just got to meet up with some random dude with like a unibrow or something. Ugh, that could be a little weird. Anyway, and unlike an exchange which could freeze your account, you truly own all the crypto you buy. With Coin ATM Radar, you can find crypto ATMs and other services where you can buy or sell cryptos for cash. On their website, you search by coin, address. If the ATM supports selling as well as buying, you can also search by geo area, which is country, state, city. You can also check and compare actual current fees at different ATMs. Find out more, go to coinatmradar.com or coinatmradar.com. Now the show's complete. I should point out also, last time, because I happened to mention BitRefill too many times, and I just did an impromptu mid-podcast ad read for BitRefill, even though they don't sponsor me. I just decided, like, let's see if I could wing this, and then there you go. I'll still have to, like, cut that clip out and send it to them and be like, hey, guess what? We're throwing you freebies. Maybe they'll throw me a not freebie after that. Who knows?
Yeah. You never know. Could happen.
Yeah. So let's cover first thing here, the stablecoin thing. I don't know, do you have a chance to look into any of this stuff?
No, like I said, I was telling you before, I was like, I had this whole plan for waking up early, and that didn't happen. So I know, what I know about stablecoins, but let's have you, tell us, and I'll kind of react.
Yeah, it's live. This is stuff that, like, I don't know how anyone cares, but this is something that, like, me and my own little nerdiness just like, oh, this is so big. Anyway, so Circle developer, Build on Circle, said, introducing the confidential ERC20 framework. The Inco network and released a new white paper, open source repo, on transforming ERC20 tokens into confidential wrapped versions that preserve user privacy using fully homomorphic encryption while maintaining compliance controls. And then they have this blog post on it. So as you go through that a little bit, and I did read the blog post, basically what it is they have a new standard for tokens, including and mostly stablecoins, because Circle issues USDC, the big one, for what they call confidentiality or confidential transactions. Now, for people who are long in the tooth, who've been in the crypto space for a while and paid attention to the technical aspects of Bitcoin in the early days, I believe it was Adam Back and Greg Maxwell, or one or the other, I don't remember which of the two, proposed a feature for Bitcoin called confidential transactions, or CT, which basically what that does is it it hides the amounts and balances. So if I send you money, I don't see how much you have in an address, and you can't see. No one can see the amount on the blockchain that I'm transacting in, and so it's an important part. A lot of people who are familiar with Monero might know that they use something called ring, or currently, something called ring CT, which is a ring signature combined with CT. So they use confidential transactions to hide the amounts, and then they use, a bunch of decoys to hide who you're sending to. And that's like an oversimplification, but that's just kind of how that works. So it's interesting how CT is now, because no one's going to use at scale like big stablecoin transfers where you send 20 grand or 100 grand or whatever in USDC, and someone with a block explorer just like, oh, someone sent that, and then they see it's like an address associated to your unstoppable domain, and it's like, oh, this guy's balling. Like, no one's going to use this financial system. They need confidentiality. And so they're basically implementing this. And what I think is very interesting is they also have well, first of all, do you have any initial thoughts on that from just that before I keep rambling?
No, I mean, the ability to transact confidentially is a huge issue for institutions and for anybody who's moving large amounts of money. So it's, I'm like encouraged to hear that they're doing that. The question is like, so, we've said before, like it was originally, cryptocurrency was about transparency and cryptocurrency was about privacy. So the problem is that if privacy works and is available for everyone, how do we get the governments to be transparent with their spending? So I guess I'm interested in learning more. What's the difference between confidential in this case and private?
Yeah. The technical difference, I guess, is with confidential transactions, they don't hide who transacts with whom. And now there's other privacy components that can do that within other things. But just for the stable coins, they're like, look, we don't mind if everyone sees known addresses transacting known addresses, as long as you hide the amounts. So it's not like you see these giant, like you can't exactly get a full picture of people's wealth. But it's interesting that in this blog post, they compare and contrast two different concepts, which I haven't really heard before, but I think they're trying to like make it a thing. Confidentiality and anonymity. They say anonymity is like for criminals, kind of. They kind of like did that stuff about like all your money, your money is your business is sort of like a nefarious thing, whereas confidentiality is some of your business is your business, but in a reasonable way. Like this is reasonable consumer privacy, and I'd like to personally push back a lot on that kind of assertion, that I think that privacy is a human right that everyone should be able to get. And at any level, it's none of my business. Like, I don't need the government to be like, you know what? I want to see if you're paying Nicole. It's okay, but we'll let you not tell us how much right now. But I just want to see it. Like, no, I want everything. That being said, I do think this is an important Overton window shifter, where now it's not like no privacy, all privacy. Now it's not too bad privacy, great privacy. And so then the middle gets shifted that way. So I think this is a win, although Circle, they did mention having like a backdoor for law enforcement basically in this contract or whatever, which is like, okay, well, screw that implementation. But like, generally speaking, it seems like an improvement. I don't know if you agree on that part.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. That's better than nothing.
Yeah, and the funny thing about this whole thing, I'm going to hit on this next slide here, I had a post a few months ago about PayPal, because I saw when I was in Consensus, which was before I made this post, like a month or two before, PayPal, they were advertising the PYUSD stablecoin. And they were advertising in their white paper a little fine print, and they had a thing about confidential transfers. And I'm like, what is this? So I looked up their white paper and read it, and it's literally this exact same thing.
Okay.
PayPal started this, you know? Whereas I think that I think that like Circle and USDC, all them might have been more content to just like, it's fine, it's all transparent, whatever. But then PayPal, which is more into the actual payment space, like the legacy payment space, is like, this amount of privacy is not going to work out. No one's going to use our shit. And so they started doing this, and now that they took that first step, they kind of took on a little bit of the risk. Now Circle's coming in and being like, no, okay, we want some privacy features too. And now that like two of the hyper-regulated stablecoins or cryptos as a whole are embracing this minimum level of privacy, what I'm starting to call MVP, minimum viable privacy.
Oh, nice. I like that. Yeah.
I think it's good for the space. And this PayPal post that I put out, when I posted out, a lot of people got annoyed at me. First of all, they're saying I was like a stablecoin shill, which I already get. Anytime I comment on current events, it's like the election's going this way. Oh, you must be one of that. Like,
it's so funny that you're like getting, because you don't even hold stablecoins.
Yeah.
Like we talked about it, where you're like, yeah, I'm finally starting to understand why, people want to hold them, why some people do hold them, why you hold them in a treasury, but like you still don't. I know, I feel that way. Like, I feel like I get categorized as both, like, I like this candidate and I like that candidate. And I'm like, I don't vote. Like, and like they're both trash,
Yeah.
Like,
in fact, one of them, side note, one of them called the other one supporters garbage.
Yeah.
And then now the other one was driving around in a garbage truck. So the whole trash thing, it's very appropriate.
Yeah.
But the thing about this, people are pushing back on, well, first off, just random people like say you're talking about trends, therefore you must desire these trends. But also, like I said, that PayPal is going to move the needle for privacy in crypto. And people are like, people got very skeptical about that claim. Just like, no, we're talking about PayPal. Come on, it's all like centralized and surveilled and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, okay, just watch. And I was right. That's all I want to do. So the main point of this podcast is this, just patting myself on the back, sort of.
Okay. I mean, yeah, like a self hug.
Yeah,
that might be better.
Yes, but I do think, like, just from understanding how privacy works, one of the easiest ways people can start to trace your transactions is through amounts. So like, if I buy a coffee, its latte is like, $4.75. Beep. As soon as I send that, if someone's behind me in line or whatever, they just like they're looking at their watch, the exact time, and then they see what coin I use. They just go to the blockchain and see what transaction for that exact amount happened, or close to that amount happened right around then. And then they can start to dig in and be like, oh, this must be this coffee shop. Okay, how much payments do they get? Okay, well, am I going to rob this place tonight? Depending on how much crypto they have. Like, you can start to do that first breadcrumb. Now the address, like if they just say they got paid in crypto, it's like you don't have that crumb. So where I'm taking this is, I think this is kind of a green light for all cryptos that don't have something much more advanced like zero knowledge stuff like Zcash, or Monero already has CT plus, ring signatures and a bunch of other stuff. Anyone who doesn't already have that, it's kind of like a green light for every safe crypto to just like severely overhaul their privacy like right now and be like, look, all the regulated people are doing it. It's no problem. We're not criminals. And just go ahead and do that. Do you think that's all naive though? And maybe they'll get in trouble for it? I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, it's hard to say, right? Like, would PayPal do something that they could get, in trouble for? Would Circle do something that they could get in trouble for? It seems like those are entities that really operate by the book. I just wonder if the rules will be applied differently if other cryptocurrencies and chains try to implement the same technology.
Yeah, I hope not, because just from anecdotal evidence, like Zcash has significantly stronger privacy than that. Like, super top of the line, no problems in the US. In Europe, they did have to make sure they had an exchange address, because every cryptocurrency in Europe, every exchange, they cannot have an anonymous account. So that means they cannot receive or send from an address that is anonymous. So it can
Right.
only do
They
it
have
from
KYC, yeah.
well, but not just that, but the actual address has to be transparent.
Oh,
So
okay.
therefore, there's a specific exchange only address that can only receive from a transparent address in Zcash. So therefore, the exchange can always see, like you say, hey, where did this money come from? And you say, no, that was me. And then you can actually sign with that address and say, this was me. And then they feel okay. And also, if they receive money that they, like someone sends money to them, they want to be able to automatically refund it if it's tainted or something. And if
Mhm.
it's a shielded transaction to like their exchange, there's nowhere they can refund it. They're just stuck with this hot potato, and they don't want to do business like that. So they want to be able to do that. And the point is with CT, even though amounts are hidden, they can still do that. So as
Yeah.
far as I know, the whole world should be able to do this and not
Okay.
have an issue. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, that's great. That's great news. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, be interesting to see. Um, let's talk about old Teabag here for a second.
Yeah, yeah, teabag. I love the new name.
Yeah, so the one and only Mr. Donald J. Trump on X said, I would like to wish our great Bitcoiners a happy 16th anniversary of Satoshi's white paper. We will end Kamala's war on crypto and Bitcoin will be made in the USA. Vote Trump. Hashtag Bitcoin. Hashtag Free Ross Day One. Damn. Damn.
Yeah,
Kind of
yeah.
interesting.
I think that Trump was really smart. Trump's team was really smart to tell him pretty early on that he should embrace the, community of Bitcoiners and cryptocurrency people because we are a bigger group than most people realized at this point. Like at this point, there are a lot of people who really, whether they hold a lot of it or not, they really support cryptocurrency and cryptocurrency, like the freedom aspect that is related to crypto. So it was really smart of Trump and his team to like come out early in support of crypto voters. And so many people who are into crypto are single issue crypto voters. They would have voted for him only because he has a more pro crypto narrative than the other
Hmm.
candidate. But then you throw on like freeing Ross and potentially eliminating the eliminating income tax, and now that's a new. I can't see, like, I know that there are crypto people who are voting for someone else, and obviously so many of us who are not voting at all, right? But I can't imagine that there are so many voting Democrat in this election.
Yeah. I don't. I've seen a few talk about
Yeah.
it, but
You know what?
yeah.
I was watching a podcast the other day. I was
Hmm.
watching a cast with oh gosh, a Paul Barron show, and he had the person who's running against Elizabeth Warren for her seat in Massachusetts.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, I can't remember his name
John
off the top.
Deaton, I think.
He was saying originally that, okay, so John Deaton, all right, so he said months ago, oh yeah, I don't think that there are a lot of single issue crypto voters. And the like actual response and data that came back from that was no, there are so many.
Yeah,
um yeah, and I mean he was talking about a state election, and obviously like Massachusetts being really near,
like
like,
it's
yeah,
MIT and Harvard and all this other kind of stuff. A lot of crypto people there.
yeah,
It is very interesting how that worked, the single issue thing, and I guess just sort of this part sort of strays a little bit further from like any kind of crypto thing and more into just general like politics. But generally speaking, for years it was the Democratic Party in the U.S. that was the coalition party of single issue people. There was the immigrants who were, very otherwise socially, economically conservative, religious, whatever. But because of the immigration issue, it's just like they'll do that one thing, and then they have to kind of do the rest. And there's the pro-choice movement that's just like, well, that
yeah,
one thing I care about.
yeah.
And then there's like a patchwork of those people, and over time, it seems like it's starting in the new Republican Party, like not 2016 or 2020 even, but like 2024 Republican Party seems to be doing that now, where now it's a bunch of people, whether it's like the pro-health people, like the RFK style people,
Yeah.
the anti-war people, although watered down anti-war, not talking hardcore, but like
Right.
anti-war type people. Where there's the fiscal conservative types, and then the crypto types. There's a bunch of people that are just like jumping on board. And it's also what you mentioned about like single issue voters. There's this whole thing like the myth of the undecided voter, where in the past, and I would even say now, like the independents or the undecided voters, everyone tried to target them until they realized in recent years, like the last 8 years or so, there aren't so many of those. People are super already decided on one or the other. And during the last, I think it was like the Trump versus Hillary debates, Bill Burr, the comedian, was just saying, "Who's watching these things? Like, why are you watching these things? Who's going to be watching those two people in a particular debate and be like, well, that was a good point, but then there is that. I don't know." Like, no, you knew exactly who you're going to vote for. And so the strategy for people in the election business, I guess, like, campaigns and stuff, has not been undecided voters. It's been turnout of your people, because the whole country of voters was like one or the other. And except now, as with this kind of thing, there's a lot of what I would call what maybe you called single issue voters, what I'd call a single issue typical non-voter, like someone who does not vote, does not care. They're just out of that thing. They're not like, well, I do vote every time, but I can't decide who. Like, no, they don't vote at all. But then one issue can get them out to vote.
So I feel like that is the case very much with a lot of people in this election and in the last couple of elections. And I will tell you something, like my mother never vote. She's been registered and she has voted before, but it is not common for her to vote. She did vote this time.
Interesting. Yeah. It's very, the dynamics of that are very fascinating. And even though, I'd rather we didn't have voting and stuff like that. I'd rather just people left us alone and everything. As just an observer of the thing.
Still anarchist paradise, that would just be perfect.
Yes.
Right?
And but like the observation of it is just, I don't care about the voting and the politics part, but I do care about or I'm interested in, I should say, the socio political trends and the shifts, like how the party, like all the neocons, as they were, all the big government, big war machine people, now like literally not just figuratively the Dick Cheneys of the world, the literal Cheneys are now in the Democrat camp, when there was the opposite. And it's just like, ooh, that's interesting. It's like, what an interesting change.
The divisiveness is really interesting. I know. So this has been coming up a lot recently, right? I'm sure that you have seen this documentary that was like very pro-Trump propaganda back, the fall of the cabal.
I probably didn't see it. No.
I can't believe you haven't seen it. You have to watch it. Obviously you can't get it on like YouTube or anything, so you have to go to BitChute or wherever. But I recently watched parts of it again, and like I feel like, so people like my mom, right, who typically don't vote, right, like me, but she's also not just voting on a single issue that she agreed with. It was a compounding of issues that she was like, oh, I agree with. And then I think the tipping point was RFK support.
Yes. And it's funny because RFK would be, if let's just imagine he ran for president in 2008 and instead of Obama, it would have been the same effect. Exact same effect. People would have rallied behind him. They'd been like, this is our guy. This is everything we're about. And now he's this like maligned kook sort of on that side, who's now just kind of a Republican. Is he a Republican or is he just with Trump? It's like, I don't even know anymore.
So I don't think so. I mean, I think that he's said like, the importance of being a Democrat in his family and everything. But I think that like a lot of people who are lifelong Democrats who have become Republicans, or who have become, they won't necessarily say Republicans, but have become conservatives. It's not a like actual changing of values. It's recognition that one side, the side that is typically associated with those values, is like less and less practicing. Like they may be they're not practicing what they preach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is something that, and I have to say the final word on this sort of pure politics part of things, because this isn't the political rundown. It's the digital
Right.
cash
Yeah. But
rundown.
no, this is
Yes.
critical to cryptocurrency, right? So
Yes. But just the I've gotten in my younger days, because I've always been much more caring about principles and facts, things like that. I got very frustrated by like politics and elections and things, because it was so like, doesn't make sense. Why would you vote for? Why would you do this? And now that I understand that the human species is all about networking and coalitions, it's a lot more interesting to me, because now I'm like, okay, you're not saying what you factually believe in a very like sort of like autistic way, right? No, you're signaling group support because you want to band together to this group to get a certain piece of power or influence, and then the other one does. And now it all makes a lot more sense to me. I'm less frustrated observing it, and it's fascinating. You know, who signals allegiance to what, and
right.
it's kind of been funny how like just on the privacy side of things, privacy cryptocurrency, a lot of people have hardcore rejected Zcash and embraced Monero and gotten an inferior privacy product as a result, purely based on the cultural signaling of people in the camps of these decentralized technologies. Oh man, I just feel like Monero's sticking it to the man, and you know, when I feel like
Yeah.
Zcash is too corporate and this and that, and it's just like, well, it's just a technology. But like
Right.
because of that, it's like the social things. People are like, well, this is my troop, my group, and the other one's that group. And there you go.
Tribalism. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And it really is more about the narrative than it is
Hmm.
about technology or the truth.
Yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
But one thing it's always about though is money, and this is where we go
Yes.
to Polymarket. And
Okay.
I think I might have highlighted this on a previous show,
Yeah.
but I did a post about breaking down what are the Polymarket odds.
I saw this post actually. So like when you posted it, because I follow you closely.
Oh, thank you. Uh, so this post here. Like I just kind of broke down what's the difference between like the polls and the betting odds. And Polymarket has been a resounding success in the crypto world because of this. It's like everyone's talking about it. And so now you see like I think Trump got up to like 67%.
Hmm.
And as I'm putting up on the screen now, he's down to 61% now. And it took a little drop here in the odds, even though I'm sure the situation on the ground can't be that different right now. But it's
Yeah.
just that a couple things change. It's like Wisconsin and Michigan started to lean more likely to go towards Harris. And so even though still it's overwhelmingly people are betting on Trump, now it's much less certain. So that's where that dump went. So the littlest of adjustments to the realities on the ground, a little new information, and the election odds swing wildly. And it doesn't mean that like it's it just the certainty. That's kind of like a certainty factor, right? It's not that the margin by which someone's going to win. It's just how sure people are. And so now that there's a little uncertainty pushed in, now the odds are going down a little bit. It's going to be really fascinating to watch, because this is one of the very first prediction market betting odds driven elections in the U.S. at least. And
Yeah.
so, and also people around the world can bet,
Yeah.
right? And that's interesting, because now people who can get invested in this. It's not just local polling, and I do think that every crypto worth its salt needs some kind of a robust prediction market on it,
Oh yeah.
because that's just like
Did you remember Augur?
yeah. I don't. I remember Naomi did a video on that one time.
Okay, it's just I think it was the first predictions market where you could, essentially bet on anything that somebody wanted to bet on. You could bet on, results of election, you could bet on gaming, you could bet on anything. Whether or not Gox would ever give the coins back.
Yeah, and I guess the challenge with like trustless or trust minimized or automated prediction market kind of things is the oracle problem, right? Is how do you ascertain that a thing happened so then you get paid on it? And like people can the other problem is like gaming results, right? So like in a presidential election, obviously it's such a big thing where no one's going to game the results to make money, right? Everyone's going to the prize of winning the election is bigger than the bets. However, if it's like, okay, let's bet like who is the HBO documentary going to reveal is Satoshi Nakamoto,
Yeah.
and they haven't published it yet. What's to prevent them from throwing a massive bet on some rando or changing it and then editing the footage at the end, and when they release it, now they cash in on this bet? That's where it gets funny. That's where it gets weird, and I don't like that. But
Yeah.
people just have to be a lot more careful with those things in the future, I think.
Yeah, that makes sense that people could and would do that.
Yeah, what I wish we had in time were bets on Craig Wright court cases.
I mean, I can't see why. I mean, like, why not? Bets on any court cases, right? What about we're going to talk about it. So what about the Richard Hart versus the SEC court case?
Yeah. That gets funny though, because that's such a, like, the SEC cases are so like goofy. They're so like, and a lot of money involved could kind of mess things up a little bit. But yeah, let's hit on good old RH here.
Okay.
I didn't really read this through too much, but this guy, Money Gang Crypto, said Richard versus SEC case summary. Hearing on his motion to dismiss the case against him. Hearing focused on two main issues: personal jurisdiction and the fraud allegations. The courtroom was packed. Blah blah blah. Arguments.
So let me just tell you what I know, right?
Yes.
Based on the research, that this is like the one topic that I was like, okay, if I'm gonna have something intelligent to contribute, it should be on this topic, right? And I had a limited amount of time to prepare because of the candy.
The candy. That is the funniest like excuse. But it's I don't disbelieve you either. I think it's legit.
Yeah. Okay. So the courtroom was so overflowed with people who showed up to show the judge that they were supporting Richard Hart that they actually had to set another room aside so all of the overflow could go in that room.
Okay.
Now, what I'm hearing is that the judge was very, very, very well prepared, and she's deliberated on a crypto case before. I can't remember the name of it. It was something that was, I don't know, something that I had never heard of. So the judge came very well prepared with a lot of questions. And one of the questions was about the personal jurisdiction, right? And she said, because Richard Hart didn't live in the United States. So the question was whether his tokens were deliberately marketed to people in the United States. And his attorneys argued that they were not deliberately marketed to people in the US. It was marketed worldwide. And actually that marketing efforts that were taken specifically within the US by US citizens were completely decentralized in nature, because even the HEX conferences that have happened in Las Vegas were held by people who were never paid to put them on and just did so because they wanted to connect with the other people in the community and spread, crypto evangelism and all of that. So that was heard in the case. The judge asked the SEC if they were going to abandon their notion that a blockchain itself can be sued, because they're suing Pulse Chain itself, not Richard Hart, but Pulse Chain itself. And that the SEC essentially did have to abandon their position that they could be suing Pulse Chain because it does not have an address. It's technology. You can't sue a technology. The SEC made the case that things were deliberately targeted to the U.S. And then when the judge kind of had said something along the lines of, well, it sounds like they were targeted worldwide and the US was just reached as a byproduct of that, that they said, well, maybe we should turn around in this courtroom and ask everyone here to raise their hands if they live in the US and Hex was marketed to them. And the judge said, no, we're not going to do that. Yeah. People are saying that there's a number of things that can happen. The judge has, I think, 60 to 90 days to deliberate. And a number of things that could happen. One would be complete dismissal based on jurisdictional grounds. One would be that they could just dismiss the Hex case because they can confidently say that Hex is not a security, but theoretically, because of the sacrifices, maybe it could be interpreted the Pulse Chain and PulseX were. And then the third option is no dismissal at all.
Interesting. I wonder if there could be an option of a settlement in there, or if the SEC thinks they're getting not everything they want, they'd be like, look, can we just settle and I take a big chunk of money?
Yeah. I don't know, honestly, that that Richard and his team would accept that. I mean, I think maybe it would depend on how much the dollar amount was versus like how long this could go on. I have no idea what really is going on in their minds. I know that people were saying that it seemed like Richard's team was extremely well prepared, and it seemed that the judge was much more responsive to them and kind of like, wagging her finger at the SEC. Now, it could be the case that people saw that because that's what they wanted to see.
I'm sure.
But, yeah.
It was kind of funny because in the Craig Wright case that he got screwed in, you had two very different accounts of what happened. And the BSV crew were like salivating and fawning over Craig Wright's performance. Like, oh man, he just put him in their place. What an expert. He's and like all this stuff. And I was just like, I wasn't there, so I didn't know, but I was just like, I don't think that's true. And then the other side is like, oh, okay, like, oh man, he looks like an idiot. I'm like, of course you'd say that too. But then when the verdict came out, it was just like a massacre. It was just like, Craig Wright's a total fraud, screw him, everything. Like, it was one of the most, it was one of the biggest legal beatdowns he could have gotten. And it's just like, okay, like maybe the other side just wanted to believe what they wanted to believe. But in either case, what I think people in the crypto world don't really grasp a lot is that these cases, from the SEC's standpoint at least, not from their stated standpoint, of course, because they're fucking, duplicitous people, they are trying to rein in and harm the crypto world. And so what they do when they do these cases, they find something where they think they have an angle, and they have like as many layers of potential things they could get of charges, and they just throw them all at them, and they just like, as they lose ground on some of the more ridiculous charges, they just like they boil them down until they just get they just want something. And I don't think the SEC has almost ever, with these crypto cases, gotten absolutely nothing. And even if they do get nothing, they still like wrecked the entire company / ecosystem of whatever. And then their job is done, kind of. Their unofficial job is done. They could have a 100% failure rate and still be doing what they set out to do, which is just destroy capital and tire people out. And that's kind of, I mean, I've never been a Hex or Pulse holder or anything, but I'm pretty sure it's not doing super well in the markets today. At least that's what people tell me. I haven't checked. And so I'm sure a lot of people who are like big holders and stuff, or holders or whatever, yay, we won. And I'm sure there could be some sort of a pump if they win, but not compared to what was lost as a result of the SEC just coming at them to begin with. So that's a little bit of a black pill right there.
Well, and what's really messed up is that, so the SEC's like stated mission is to protect retail investors, right? But that's actually not what happened at all. What happened was like Hex was doing exceptionally well, and then the case got filed and the price dropped. So who did they protect exactly, right? Like the price drop was a direct result of the SEC taking action.
Yeah.
So how could it ever be interpreted as though the SEC is fulfilling their stated mission, right? And then I don't know if you've seen this, but there are several of them, but there is one on Netflix documentary about Madoff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Bernie and the SEC knew for years what was going on. They knew, and they didn't take action until it was too late. So, like, I don't know how anybody at this point could still hold the notion that the SEC is doing their best to protect people. I also don't know how anybody could have the position, like, it comes up still raised, like, fairly often, how anybody could hold the position that it's completely okay that Roger was arrested in Spain because he didn't pay the right amount of taxes upon his exit. And it's like, wait a second, are you or are you not a crypto anarchist? Because that's how you portray yourself to be. Yet you're okay with, putting someone in jail over accidentally reporting the wrong amount at a time when there was very little to no clarity on how exactly crypto should be taxed.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a total disgrace.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, and the consumer protection thing's an interesting thing because I do think that the SEC was authorized by, whichever, voted in politicians wrote whatever thing I'm not super familiar with the long-term history of the SEC, but I'm sure they were when they got created. The assumption was that they were going to act in the best interest of protecting consumers. And maybe there was a case or two where that happened, and then they just went off the rails, and now it's just this thing you got to deal with. And now I think that it's just like, this is the law, and this is what happens. It's kind of the mindset, rather than this was the intent of creating this regulatory agency. Are these aims being achieved, or is the opposite being achieved? And the opposite, in my opinion, and the opinion of most rational people or most honest people, I should say, even if they,
Most informed people, right? Because there are a lot of
yeah,
people who are being dishonest, but are just like, they get their news from mainstream media and believe what they hear, right?
yeah, and so they're not protecting consumers. They're punitively going after companies who you might say did some sketchy things, but even if you agree with their results of like, oh yeah, we're going after these companies they're sketchy, I don't think anyone can honestly make the claim that they are protecting consumers, other than maybe, okay, if they destroy enough, like crypto as a whole is kind of a scam. If they destroy enough the industry, people won't be scammed in the future. I don't really even know, but it's pretty tough. It's pretty tough to think that they are following the law or protecting consumers. So definitely needs a big reevaluation. Now that's where we sort of circle back to the whole election type thing, because it's going to be interesting Tuesday for sure.
Yeah.
And based on what happens there, I have seen, for example, the Team Blue has made some sorts of overtures to the crypto community, but nothing specific. Just like, no, we'd like to work with you. No, things are going to be better. Nothing specific, just like little things. I think just to try to get some of the people that were like, you know what, I'm all in on crypto. I vote blue all the time, but I think I can't this time because how hostile they are, and they're just trying to make them feel good enough so that they'll continue to vote blue, probably.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in my opinion, if that team wins, after like the day after the election, they're going to just drop any pretense of being a friend of the industry and just go back to the whole Gensler plan. Probably that would be my prediction, which hard to quantify for a poly market bet, so I won't be doing that. But if the other team wins, like, I'd like to be optimistic that things will get better. They probably will, but how much better? Like, the simplest thing is just to fire Gensler, get someone better in there.
Yeah.
Will that even happen though? I'm like 60% that Gensler is going to go if the red team wins, but not all the way. He might still just be there,
Bad about a poly market?
Yeah, I don't know. I actually looked that up.
Yeah.
Yeah, why don't you filibuster and say some things while I look that up on Polymarket?
I can't wait for, we were talking about this before, before we started streaming, but what I really can't wait for the election to be over is just so that we can start fighting about whatever the next thing we're going to fight about is. It's just like overwhelming to be constantly, and it's because it's not just in your online life, it's not just in your work life, it's in your personal life, it's in your family, it's with your friends, if those are things that you talk about with them, which it's almost impossible not to, with the level of pushing it on us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know. I can't find anything about Gensler specifically. Maybe the search function is the best.
Okay.
But yeah, I think it's worth betting if you can. But yeah, the whole the thing about what was the quote? I forget who said it. Probably some awful person, but it's true. About you might not be interested in politics, but politics is interested in you.
Yep.
And I wish that wasn't the case, because so much of my day has to do with not that. So much of my dealing with other people, cooperation with other people, all that kind of stuff. I like some of the best people in the world are highly educated non-voters, I would say. Because the problem is you get a lot of people who are, when you get to be a voter, a lot of times you start to get into this paradigm and
tribalism.
Yeah, you start to get or just invested in these outcomes too much, and it has to change your perspective a little bit. But then I can't stand non-voters typically, because usually they're just blissfully aware and naive about everything, and it's just this person's not going to survive. They're not looking at the horizon of oh, home prices are going to go up, I better do this. Oh, this price is going to go up, or oh, I better make sure to hold on to my guns because there's a possibility they could start taking them away, and that could be very bad. All these kinds of things, they just complete ignorance, and it's hard to really have a real conversation with people like that. But people who are very educated on the issues but choose not to vote tend to be the best people to talk to. And I'm not just saying that because you're here, but possibly. But yeah, so what was that?
You vote?
Typically, yes.
Okay.
In the past, I voted here and there. It wasn't super consistent, and then I moved to New Hampshire, and after that, I've been very consistent because there are actual, stated anarchists on the ballot who can and have won. And I've seen in the 10, 11 years I've been here, I've gotten noticeably freer in the time here. I've seen the progress of whole taxes have been not just lowered, but dissolved. The interest and dividends tax just got voted out because of people I know or friends who I voted for who did this. I got better gun rights. I got
voting in your local elections is much more impactful and important. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So typically on the higher levels, I still vote, but as an afterthought, kind of. Okay. Or I write someone in. I've done a lot of, in the last, I would say 10, is it 10 years a good thing? 10, 12 years, I think every single presidential and gubernatorial even vote has, maybe even national congressional vote, I think almost every single one has either been a third party or a write-in on that level.
Yeah.
And it just the actual, red versus blue has been only local, where it impacts my actual life, and my vote can actually impact the result. And and it's funny because there's a friend of mine who is also a crypto OG, and he's also very hardcore libertarian anarchist type, but kind of solid value and voting in some things. He and his wife voted in his local election, and the person they voted for won by one vote.
Wow.
So literally, if he literally did that, so it can happen, but just on the national level, it's very, very different. But yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing. One thing is kind of interesting about the whole anarchy thing. I'm sure this goes deep into religious beliefs and quasi-religious beliefs and things like that. anarchists seem to accept, even though they complain about it, the fact that they have to pay taxes, get regulated permits, drive on, use public service, all that. They just accept. They complain about it, but they accept it. But they get really mad about voting. And voting is like, of all the awfuls of government, voting is like the best part, because you get to like, other than government just crashing to the ground at some point. That's a good part too, but that doesn't happen a lot. The point is, like, of all the stuff of like, man, you got to pay taxes, you got to go, do this, you got to renew your license, your permits for this. It's just all that awful stuff that you just accept it because you're in this imperfect system, that's fine to do, or you just got to do it. But then you just get really mad about your right to protest, even if it's just a little check-in box protest, and you get mad at other people that do that and just say, because you're consenting. It's like, well, you're not consenting, and how's that working out for you?
Yeah.
So I understand people who don't vote because it doesn't matter, or it does, or whatever. There's much more important things to do. But I will not understand people that get really mad about voting, about like if you do vote, or also if you don't vote. Like some people, here's the thing that it gets me really mad, or makes me laugh, I guess, is when people get really mad if you don't vote.
Yeah, that's what I feel like. People get mad at me and they're like, you should vote. And I'm like, you should mind your own business is what you should do.
But also, it's not just like vote. It's like, why don't I vote against everything that you like? It's like, somehow that's fine as long as you vote. It's like, no. Listen, if someone is going to vote the way I don't want them to vote, I'm very happy that they don't vote at all. I don't care. Yeah. Like, I'm glad that people don't vote sometimes. So, I don't know. People are weird with this stuff. But, crypto's going to be an interesting part. What I find is interesting is, and this could be a complete political podcast at this point, but like, there's the libertarian segment of the population has become a national election deciding force this time around, and not through the party, not through the third party, but whatever. Right. And the crypto world has also been something like that too, where now it's like you have two deadlocked 50-50, like polarized groups of voters, and then there's the single issue non-voter, right? And then those people are now just like the libertarian vote would be like probably like third party, which is technically kind of like a non-voter or whatever, but it's like they're up for grabs now, or not up for grabs, but they're there, and there's, compared to how many people are crypto people and are crypto hardcores, let's say, and are libertarians or whatever, the amount of attention they've gotten from both sides has been pretty crazy. It's been pretty high considering, but it's because those little margins are what make it happen. So, do you think the crypto vote is going to be the same next time around, like the same power in the next election? Do you think it's going to be a bigger power, or do you think it's going to be less of a power because it'll be more mainstream and it won't be such a isolated part, like ours and D's will already be involved in crypto and it's just not going to factor in as much?
Yes, I think the next, in 4 years, it's difficult to say what 4 years from now is going to look like, right?
Or 4 days from now,
right? And but just looking at what, like, in previous elections, candidates have completely ignored cryptocurrency and said nothing or said only negative things about it. And this time, both have said, both sides and, third parties have had to address the issue. It's so important. We're such a big group that they had to address the issue. So I think that either way, next time, crypto's not like a marginalized group to be deliberately targeted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it might be like baked into the rest of the vote a little more.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I kind of agree. Now the next question is, when is this phenomenon of the crypto vote mattering? Not just crypto, but the vote mattering. When is this going to hit other countries?
I would say that it probably already has, right? It depends on which country, but there are definitely places in the world where higher numbers of, higher percentages of the population hold a known cryptocurrency. So, but I guess there are, a lot of those places are places where people are in like absolute, disaster. So, I don't know that like vote your way out of that, but I would say that this has to be an issue in places like Korea and, places where it's very common for people to own cryptocurrency.
So from just the top of my head, thinking about what I've heard, I could have sworn, I could have sworn I heard something about in Korea a few years ago, people protesting some anti-crypto laws because they just say, look, we want to gamble. Let us have our fun and gamble. We love this. This is our one thing. And other than that, I haven't seen that much. Like, it's funny how like El Salvador has become like, it's become a huge thing, but there was no vote around that. It was just Bukele was like, I want to do this. And now there's a recent survey that says like only like 8% of the country, which has gone down from like 12%, uses crypto at all.
Yeah, no, I have heard that.
Yeah, and it's just like it was kind of an attention grabber for El Salvador's version of the Javier Milei in Argentina turnaround kind of deal. It was kind of like their big marketing gimmick, kind of almost. And who knows if it's the money is going to be like the Bitcoin treasury is going to save the country or help them out or something. I don't know at all. The actual adoption thing is definitely just like a gimmick that is now, I think, worn away. It's kind of gone away. And who knows? Like, I don't think the average Salvadoran actually cares either way. Like, I don't think that people would vote for or against. First of all, I don't think people can really. I think people can only vote for Bukele. I think if they vote against, they're going to get disappeared or something.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, a lot of the places where it really matters are places where you don't, like, things are just so bad that a vote doesn't really count at all. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it'll be just interesting to see because I think the U.S. is a little bit ahead on the crypto thing as far as, I don't think they're ahead on crypto, but there's a lot of crypto people in the U.S., a lot of businesses, and I think they're ahead on making it a political issue. Because I think the U.S. is one of the most political places on the planet as far as like where people get involved and start lobbying and like, it becomes a thing. So it's very interesting. What was I going to say about that? I interviewed and I published this on, I think Thursday, I think early yesterday, an interview with Milan Dorede, who runs this GPT proxy called Nano GPT that takes crypto and stuff. But before that, when he got into crypto, he's publishing under this female pseudonym on X called Mira Hurley because he was working at the Dutch central bank at the time. So he's a Dutch central banker and wanted to keep everything quiet to not all this crypto ramblings.
Sure.
And at some point he found out that like the central bank didn't actually care that much. Like they're just like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, you're into crypto. Yeah, just don't say this is the opinion of the central bank and you're fine. And it seems it's kind of weird how like a lot of, I feel like the Federal Reserve of the United States is what I would call anti-crypto or anti-decentralized crypto.
Yeah, because you cannot work for them if you own crypto. Same thing with the SEC. It's why they're having so much trouble, finding people who are knowledgeable about cryptocurrency.
Gensler is very knowledgeable, actually.
Yeah.
But then you go to, again, the central bank of the Netherlands, and I'm sure a bunch of European countries, and they're just so much more chill about it and more into it. They're like, oh, it's very interesting. And then they're more into like, oh, but we should have a central bank controlling the supply and this and that. They're still about the central banking part, but like as far as crypto and blockchain, they're just like, oh, this is cool. Yeah, go ahead. Like, let's hire crypto experts to come in and work for the central bank just because it's like interesting and relevant to global finance. And like, but it's just not political like in the U.S. where it's like everyone's campaigning, throwing a bunch of money, and politicians going to crypto conventions. But it will be interesting to see the next one that gets decided by like the crypto vote.
Yeah.
Oh, and on that sort of note, like we're talking about El Salvador, and then Dubai is another one of those things where
Yep.
when you have countries that
Doesn't
are,
vote. That doesn't vote.
yes, when you have countries that are owned rather than governed at the behest of the people, with a
Mhm.
little, it's like basically dictatorships, kind of, right?
Mhm.
The silver lining of that is they can act like a business and adapt to global market pressures and be like, hey, people want a place to no capital gains, build your crypto business. Come here, we'll take your business. They can just
Well,
decide
the
that.
thing is, they tell people, you're actually when you may not be able to vote for the leadership of the country, but you are voting with your dollar, and that's the
Yeah.
only vote that really matters. And if you look at like the numbers of people who are moving to Dubai, who are staying in Dubai, they're certainly voting that's what they want.
Yeah. Oh, that reminds me. Maybe I'll just throw this up on the screen for like a second before we wrap up here. Um, I saw something about Tether in Dubai.
Oh, okay.
Let me just see if I could pull. Um, Interesting. Yeah, here we go. So I'm going to throw this up on the screen, and then we go. For Cointelegraph. Breaking. This is 6 hours ago. Tether announces the launch of a dirham-pegged stablecoin on Ton, the Ton blockchain.
Mhm.
So Tether is launching a Emirati dirham-denominated
What's funny
stablecoin.
is what's really funny is that the dirham is actually pegged to the dollar.
Yeah. It's like, yo,
So
dog, I
it's
heard you like pegging.
pegged of a pegged. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like, because like it's a digital representation of a fake fiat money that
Yep.
is pegged to another fake fiat money somewhere
Yep.
else. So it's like house of cards. Wouldn't that be funny if like one little thing causes a cascade?
No, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if it's Tether this time around.
Yes, although it's very interesting because I was in Dubai earlier this year, and I was trying to work with some crypto people there who were trying to onboard some businesses to take crypto. But during
Yeah.
that time, they were, the Dubai was on the fence about allowing crypto payments at all. They didn't want, like they were fine allowing crypto and crypto businesses, but not as money. They wanted their currency.
Yeah,
And
sure.
now it's like, okay, now this is the compromise. Now I think everyone's going to be able to pay with what is it? USDT. No,
Mhm.
different DT. DIRT or whatever.
It won't be US. It won't be US. It'll
Oh,
be
sorry.
UAD.
UAED. UAET is Tether.
UAD.
UAEDT. I
Yeah.
don't know. I'll have to look up the. This is probably the stupidest thing I've said on the
UAED.
entire show.
United Arab Emirates Durham.
Yeah,
UAE.
let me actually see. Let's see if it's on CoinGecko yet. Whatever. The AED. So it's probably gonna be AEDT. If I were to
Okay.
guess. But anyway, the point is that'll just be the currency they use to actually like pay there, probably.
Yeah.
But so on a greater thing, I was thinking about too many things. I gotta bring up something more. There's a shift, right? So Tether's days as the star of the U.S. and Western European stablecoin market are very clearly over.
Yeah.
They're not doing that. Circle is winning out in the U.S. I don't know exactly how that's going in Europe. I think, we'll see. But the point is, I don't think Tether's going anywhere, and not because it's not sketchy or whatever, but
Okay.
because Tether is so entrenched in the global south or whatever. But not just the developing world, but also the whole like BRICS side of things. The whole, Russia,
Yeah.
whether it's Russia or China or Brazil or like these other, like the anti-Western powers, so to speak, that other power coalition. And so because of that, I think it's going to thrive. But I should point out that a friend of mine, who's also living unbanked on crypto and all the other awesome stuff, on X, I'm going to throw us up on the screen. He wrote a very fascinating article called "BRICS versus Bitcoin," and It's like a 4,000 word monstrosity, but it's worth 4 or 5,000. But it's worth reading because he kind of goes into the Bitcoin dollar versus bricks, and where they have like a bricks pay already. They're starting to come together. So basically, the bet that like, oh, hyper Bitcoinization is going to take over. People just got Bitcoin backed dollars and everything else. It's kind of throwing a little shade on that idea. Instead, just saying like, look, you're thinking in a binary of like of a U.S. fiat versus Bitcoin supported stuff. But there's a third thing. It could just be that BRICS is going to be using blockchain technology, partially backed by gold, to issue a competing currency to the U.S. dollar's hegemony. So that's an interesting read. Just Rare Passenger is his handle. Just look up.
Oh, we're mutuals too.
Nice. Yeah, he's a fun dude. Also been on the show a bunch. So look under the articles tab of his feed to find this article and go through that. It's just
that sounds really interesting.
Yeah, just an interesting other concept that's not just like U.S. crypto, you know.
Yeah.
Now, as a final funny thing, what's his name? Nodak Lojak in the comments says, please don't say pegged images. Well, now we know who needs to refresh their dirty browser history, but
yeah. That sounds like a you problem, honestly. Why are you making that a problem?
Yes, there's lots of different things. I was going to say there's lots of different ways to get pegged, but no, there's lots of different definitions of that word. That's probably a better thing to say. Anyway, cool stuff. So, shill o'clock. Anything particular to shill right now? I
have nothing to shill at the moment, you know? Yeah.
Well, I will throw up your X on the screen.
Okay.
I mean, not your X on, but you know, your
my X account,
your Twitter account.
My X.com account. Yes.
Throw up your X on the screen. Oh, no, don't show everyone that. That's kind of funny. Yep. So, NRDGRL007. Norgirl 007. Did you just retweet this BRICS article now?
Yeah, I just did. Yeah.
I was going to say, wow, I was like shilling this article to you and you already retweeted it.
No. I just did it. I retweeted it so that it would be like really easily accessible when we wrap this up so that I can get to it right away. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, fun stuff. All right, guys and gals and non-binary pals. I didn't come up with that. It was YouTube chef or real chef, but also YouTube chef J. Kenji Lopez Alt, who has fantastic GoPro cook along with him videos. He always ends with, "Okay, guys, gals, non-binary pals, I'll see you around." So,
all right,
guys, gals, non-binary pals, thanks for watching. Gonna see you next week. Happy 1st of November. Pay your bills, remember? And I'm sorry for killing your smile with that comment. The bills.
I was like, wow, really? I have to? Yeah.
Happy Election Day coming up for the U.S. The whole world who's into crypto is going to wake up in a different world on Wednesday. And so you have Wednesday and Thursday to process it before Friday's next show. We're going to be talking about what happened as a result of this. So it'll be fun. All right, guys. Enjoy the weekend. Bye.